I kicked my brother and his wife out over a joke she made about my kids and my late wife, and now half the family thinks I'm the bad guy, but I don't regret it at all. I, 36 male, am a single father to my 2 kids, who we'll call Gabriel, 17 male, and Becky, 14 female. Their mother, my wife, passed away 8 years ago after a long illness. Obviously, this was devastating for our family and we're still recovering from the loss even now. I haven't remarried or even bothered seriously dating since my wife's death, as I don't think I'll ever love anyone like I did her ever again. I miss her dearly, but I am content being single if she's not around. Also relevant to this post, the house that we live in currently originally belonged to my wife's grandfather. She inherited it when he passed, and then she left it to me in her will. It's a nice house and quite large, with 5 bedrooms and a decent amount of land as well. I have a younger half-brother, who we'll call James, 30 male. James and I share a father but have different mothers. To be honest, we've never been particularly close. Not to get too into irrelevant details, but our upbringings and our respective relationships with our father are very different, and it's always been a source of quite a lot of tension between the two of us. However, at the end of last year, James suffered from a series of pretty severe misfortunes. The company that he was working for went under, meaning that he ended up losing his job and, since he works in quite a specialized and competitive field where jobs are few and far between in the first place, he was having a really difficult time finding another one. He was the sole earner for his family, so obviously this was quite a blow for them. Several weeks after that, they experienced a house fire which left the family homeless and destroyed a lot of their belongings. Despite not being close at all, I obviously didn't want to see my family suffer in this way, and since I had the room to do so, I offered for James and his family to come and stay at my home until they were able to get back on their feet. This meant that, living in our house was as follows: myself, my 2 kids, James, his wife Laura, 31 female, and their twins Abby and Sarah, both 9 female. It became apparent very shortly after they moved in that we have very different lifestyles and perspectives on things. Simply put, James and Laura consider themselves to be more of a traditional couple, which is why James was the sole earner for their household. They both believe that it is a man's duty to go out and work while his wife stays at home and tends to the house and the children. This is also how they are raising their daughters. Let me be clear, if they want to live this way and it works for them, then power to them and they're well within their rights to do so. However, this isn't how I run my own household. Both of my kids have always been taught how to do housework, and both have always been actively encouraged to pursue whatever careers they want in the future. I was aware of our lifestyle differences before they moved in. However, I had not been anticipating it becoming an issue of any sort. However, around a month into them living with us, I noticed that James and Laura were starting to try and push their ways into my family. For example, on nights when it was Gabriel's turn to do the dishes, Laura would tell him he shouldn't be doing that and would ask one of her own daughters to do it, or suggest Becky take over instead. I also noticed that James developed a habit of asking Becky to do things for him that he was perfectly capable of doing himself, such as getting him a drink while everyone was watching TV together or asking her to clean up a mess that he made. I always shut this behavior down when it happened, and eventually sat James and Laura down one night and told them that they're perfectly welcome to live how they want when they have their own home, but this is the way we do things in my house and I would appreciate if they would stick to that while under my roof. They did try to push back a little, but I held firm and they eventually relented. For the next few months, everything seemed fine. There were a couple of instances where Gabriel and James knocked heads over differences of opinions, but it was never anything serious and never went any further than a couple of heated discussions over the breakfast table. I was also aware that Becky found Abby and Sarah a bit annoying because they always wanted to be in her room or around her, but again, this was nothing major and was very typical teenager sharing a house with younger kids type of stuff. In late July of this year, James finally found another job in his field and they began the process of finding a new home of their own. All seemed great. However, around this same time, I noticed that there was a sort of shift in energy between Gabriel and Laura. He seemed suddenly to be quite uncomfortable around her, never wanted to be alone with her and avoided talking to her in group settings. This immediately struck me as odd because he's usually a very laid-back and friendly kid, so I asked him what was up and if anything had happened. At first he said that nothing had, and that she was just being that way she is and it was getting on his nerves. By this I assumed he just meant that she'd start pushing this idea that, as a man, he shouldn't be doing domestic labor of any kind on him again. I contemplated saying something at the time, but decided to leave it as I knew they'd be moving out soon and it wouldn't be a problem anymore. Fast forward a few weeks, James, Laura and their kids are out for the day. My daughter approaches me and says she has something important to tell me that might make me upset. I asked what was up, and she told me that Laura had told her that the reason I haven't remarried or gotten a new girlfriend yet is because women my age don't want to settle for someone who isn't a real man, and had made a joke that my wife was probably having an affair before she died anyway. Becky also said that Laura told her I was jealous of my brother because he earned everything he had while this house was just a handout. Note, aside from inheriting the house, I have also worked for everything I have ever had, and that she feels sorry for Gabriel because I'm going to turn him into a pussy like me. Obviously, I was already furious at this alone, but I wanted to also speak to my son before I took anything further to find out if anything had been said to him as well. When I asked him, I found out that Laura had not only made the same jokes to him, but had offered to hire a street worker for his 18th birthday so that he could become a man. Gabriel isn't into girls, and when he told her that, she had just laughed it off and told him he'll learn to be. When James and Laura returned to the house, I immediately confronted her about this. She didn't deny any of it, but just started laughing and saying it was all a joke and I needed to lighten up. I told her that, not only did I not find it funny but she was no longer welcome in my house if that's how she was going to speak to my children, and that I wanted either an earnest apology or for her to leave that night. They were both outraged at this, continuously telling me to lighten up and get a sense of humor. I told them it wasn't funny at all and gave them the same ultimatum: apologize and mean it, or Laura has to leave. I made it clear that she was the one I had the issue with and that James and their twins could stay if they wanted, but I didn't want her in my house anymore if that's what she felt was appropriate. That night, they packed their stuff up and the whole family went to an Airbnb, where they stayed for a couple of weeks until they were able to move into a new place. Our family have been split on this. Our father is taking James's side, which isn't shocking at all lol, though surprisingly James's mother has reached out to me and acknowledged that what Laura said was inappropriate and she understands why I'm upset, though she thinks I overreacted. The two of them have been very much dramatizing the story about how I threw them out in the middle of the night for no reason. They left at around 7 p.m. and went straight to the Airbnb, so in a lot of their friends' eyes, I'm the villain in this scenario. I know I did what was right for me and my children, but I am catching an awful lot of flack for it and it is starting to take a bit of a toll. Mostly, I just can't wait for it to be over. Thank you for letting me vent about this all. It felt good to get a lot of it off my chest.